Malaysian Airlines flight MH17, a regularly scheduled flight from Amsterdam, Netherlands to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, exploded as it flew along eastern Ukrainian airspace after being attacked by a missile. All 295 passengers and crew members are dead, making it the deadliest missile attack aviation disaster in history and the second deadliest single airline disaster via active terrorism in history behind the bombing of Air India Flight 182, a 747 in Irish airspace over the Atlantic on June 23, 1985, killing all 329 on board, mostly Canadian citizens. The latest Malaysian Air 777 disaster comes on the heels of a Malaysian Airlines plane that went missing back in March. That plane still has not been found as it disappeared from radar en route to Beijing from Kuala Lumpur. Pro-Russian separatists who have been battling for independence in eastern Ukraine are presumed to be responsible for this missile attack. A cell phone conversation between two of the insurgents was intercepted, and in that recording, one of the insurgents, a fellow by the name of Bryant, admits to shooting down the plane, and they sounded visibly upset. Apparently they intended to hit a military target and not a commercial airline. These insurgents and Malaysian Airlines officials represent a bigger problem that many are failing to address. That is the utter chaos and lack of structure that is becoming increasingly evident throughout the world today. We have previously discussed the anti-establishment desires of the Tea Party and their lack of direction that essentially is an attempt at all-out anarchy. As I have mentioned before, if the Tea Party has their way, households could arm themselves with militia so they can defend themselves from their neighbor's militia. What is or is not an act of war will be quite challenging to figure out because there will not be any more organized governments. People can do whatever they want. In comes the latest Malaysian air disaster. Malaysian Airlines, which has always had a very cozy and relatively luxurious flight cabin and considered to have top-notch service, has been flying this route which they knew was over a volatile part of the world. It was not restricted airspace, but nonetheless it was highly recommended that airlines do not fly over that region, and everyone knows that East Ukraine is not exactly Disneyland. These guys did so anyway, and to add insult to injury, they flew the exact same route the next day after the disaster and didn't even bother changing the flight number. I don't know what's wrong with these guys, but being a simple man, my guess is it is all about money. They save money if they fly over that region because it gets them to where they need to go quicker. Also, they'll have happier passengers if they fly their route because they can shave some time off a long international flight. They know how to make money, but apparently they don't know anything about public relations. Unfortunately, this time, the passengers didn't get their wish because they were dead a few hours into the flight. Sounds like an American-made automobile. Comfy ride, but you better hope there's a recall before you're scraped off the street after an engine malfunction. Now back to the Tea Party. There are a lot of different warring regions around the world. Malaysian Airlines will argue that there are plenty of warring regions and it's simply unfeasible to avoid these regions when running a commercial airliner, and they're not the only ones who fly over such regions. They probably have a point, and the issue rests solely on the geopolitics of the region and whether these insurgents should be given any official standing. The United States and many around the world call these attackers pro-Russian separatists or insurgents. This means they are viewed as a guerrilla terrorist organization unaffiliated with any organized government. Russia wants nothing to do with these guys, and the moment any Russian involvement is proven with these guys, the attack, as well as previous attacks, will be seen as an official act of war between Russia and the Ukraine, since the intended target of these people is the Ukrainian government and the military. The irony, however, is that if this does somehow become proven to be a Russian state-sponsored attack, it won't be good for Putin and his cronies, but from a purely international law perspective, this Bryant guy who shot down the plane is probably not guilty of war crimes since he was acting on behalf of a recognized government and accidentally hit the plane while engaged in combat and thought he was shooting at a Ukrainian military aircraft, at least according to that intercepted phone conversation. So where do we draw the line? If these guys are not affiliated with any government and just some rogue jokers trying to gain independence, when is it safe to declare a region a war zone so cheap asses like Malaysian Airlines are prohibited from flying there, killing people who probably found a good deal on Travelocity or Expedia? On a side note, nobody goes to travel agents anymore because they think they know it all and can get a good deal online. Trusted travel agent can at least put your travels in proper context so you know if you're flying through a war zone. Now, I mean, this isn't meant to be a commercial for a travel agency, but it goes back, really, I mean, it's all one big circle. It goes back to the Tea Party philosophies and where the world is headed. Since every Dick, Bob, and Harry is increasingly gaining access to information and weaponry, and everybody's a know-it-all these days, people are taking matters into their own hands, and never is there a clear line as to what is official and what is not. If everyone is autonomous and have the right to their own sovereignty, then these rogue terrorists in Ukraine should be recognized as a government fighting an act of war. On that same note, Malaysian Airlines should have been prohibited from flying over that region because it was a war zone. Now we're faced with a question. Do you want the world to be a bunch of sovereigns where everyone hoists their own flag and has their own national anthem and have a bunch of war zones making it illegal to fly pretty much everywhere? Or do you want to have a more structured society where terrorists like these are brushed off as the jokers that they are and cheap asses like Malaysian Airlines are exposed for the penny-pinching misers that they are? I'll let you make that call and allow you to lower the hatchet yourself.